Okay, hello. First I'd like to apologise. Today is going to be a kind of rushed video because I've got so much homework to do. I don't have time to cut and edit it and make it cool, so it's just going to be me umming and ahhing along. Basically, those of you that know me will know I'm quite a big fan of biology, and at the weekend I bought this really cool book called Mapping the Mind, which is all about neurology, and it's just amazing. So I thought today I'd talk a bit about the brain. Okay, so if you look at the evolution of the brain a bit, we all started very basic, and it all started when fish developed this kind of tube which is on the spine, and it was used to carry neurons from outer parts of the body to the central control point in the middle. So first it was just like this bulge on the spine. Basically then the nerves in it sorted themselves out into little modules. Some were sensitive to chemical molecules in the atmosphere, so those are where we get smell. Some were sensitive to light, which is where we get the eyes. And these were all connected by the cerebellum, which is basically the part of your brain that controls movement. And that's the basic reptilian brain, so what reptiles have. So basically then we got this thing called the thalamus, and that allowed you to link up the smell and sight and sound, so you could smell tea, and in your mind's eye you could envisage the tea even if you weren't actually drinking the tea. So that was quite a big step forward. Then you get the hypothalamus, and that allows you to respond to stimulus, particularly the temperature. So that's basically where you get the big divide, and you get mammals coming along who can control their body temperature, which is basically what we called warm-blooded. This is what we call the limbic system. It's basically the emotional system. Thanks to evolution, we became more sensitive, and we got this thin matrix of cells, which is basically like a skin, and that became the very first cortex, and that evolved around all the stuff that I've mentioned before to give us a shape that basically resembles what we have today. So you got early human-like mammals developing, and they developed a really large cortex, and it pushed the cerebellum back and basically gave us this sort of general head shape which we associate with things like monkeys and us. So that takes us up to about 3 million years ago. We had human-shaped brains, but they were about a third of the size of ours. And then, suddenly, 1.5 million years ago, our brains underwent this explosive enlargement. It was all so sudden that the skull bones were pushed out to make room for it, and that gives us the forehead and the general shape that makes us different from monkeys and apes of our head. And this new brain was full of the stuff we used for communication and organising and planning. But the big question is why? I mean, what caused the curious bulging brain? Obviously, we were descended from fish, but some people think that we may have had another time in history, another aquatic stage, where early humans moved back into the water for a bit. And that would be why we lost all our hair, so we're not like gorillas, and we have this waterproof skin and a slightly hooded nose. Obviously, a lot of people take omega-3 tablets, which is supposedly brain food, and it's basically just fish oils. Our brain development would have been accelerated if we'd lived underwater on the seafood diet. So another theory is tool using and hunting, and it was around 2.5 million years ago that we began to make tools, and these processes basically enhanced our hand-eye coordination. So having to use all this new dexterity to make tools and bang teacups and stuff basically prepared the brain for making hand gestures and communicating in a long distance and things like that. And they were basically the forerunners for language, which itself allows for planning, innovation, and creating more tools. So when we've got better tools and better communication, we become better hunters, and we get a more protein-rich diet, which in turn is capable of supplying all the energy required for a supersized brain. So then it becomes a bit of a positive loop. We get a better brain, we get better tools, better hunting, better brain, and so on. And that is what some people think caused the sudden and big bulging of the brain. The final theory, which I quite like, is the extended infancy and social grouping theory. Basically, with the brain getting bigger, because we're getting bigger infants, and so they had to be born earlier, otherwise they wouldn't be able to fit. I won't go into all the details, but you can imagine. Obviously, being born earlier meant that children were more vulnerable, and so they needed more protection for longer from their mother. And it also meant that the mothers needed more support from their social group. So the mothers that had brains which were able to function best socially would flourish a lot better, and so they'd have an evolutionary advantage. anything with an evolutionary advantage is more likely to survive and more likely to pass on the big brain gene and make it common in humans. So yeah, there you go. There are the 3 theories as to why 1.5 million years ago our brains suddenly swelled and made us awesome and as cool as we are today. Now it's up to you which you believe, or if you believe none, or like me, you believe a combination of all 3. But regardless, DF2BA.